that. You know what I mean?
I read an article about you recently. That like you're an anti-Semite or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was one of those articles where like the longer I read, the more I wanted to break my phone open because I was like, you motherfuckers quoted a quote of some guy's tweet who alleged some very vague generality.
Yeah, it's
and like
ridiculous.
of a guy that you were on a panel with, and the guy said some funny jokes, and that guy was actually Jewish, and I was like, I'm not reading this shit anymore.
Yeah.
It was a classic example of like, just take as much as you can out of context as possible. It was just like,
Yeah.
I'm sure you see a lot
stuff
of
like
that.
yeah, of course. That stuff like that happens all the time, especially in political stuff.
Oh,
it's like
God.
because people have like an ideological perspective.
They already hate you.
They're already prime. Yeah.
That would have been her mission. Her mission would have been to inculcate the neoconservatives like Liz Cheney, which was her #1 surrogate that she closed the election with.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, yeah, we've believe me.
So if you're mad at me that Kamala Harris lost, I could just say, like,
I'm not mad
hey,
at you
I tried my best to convince people that she needed to change.
I'm
And
not
I was
mad
very
at
on
you.
board for.
Mike,
I was very
Mike,
on board when this switch happened.
Mike, I'm not mad at you that Kamala Harris lost. I'm just saying, like, in terms of efficacy, you brought up the polls. I wanted to go forward from there. But from your perspective, what did Elise Slotkin do? Let's say in Michigan, like when we saw, a Gallego win in Arizona or Slotkin win in Michigan, what did they do that Harris did not?
Well, I see a lot of people saying that it was their campaigns, but the reality is it's in the nature of the type of voters that Donald Trump won. Donald Trump won low propensity voters. That traditionally was the purview of the Democratic Party, the working class. And one of the problems with lower propensity voters is they're not as ideologically committed. So what just happened is the Democrats did better with this upper class, more elite type of person who votes completely down ballot. And the Republicans won a lot of low propensity voters who just came in there to vote for Donald Trump. And there was vote drop off. And so those people kind of, they walked through the raindrops because it was a close enough election that you have those low propensity voters. I think Slotkin was a little bit better on issues like Israel. I think she came out and said something, she said some bullshit. She was a huge AIPAC supporter, and she's going to be, another Kirsten Sinema. And she almost lost because of that. But I think it was the nature of the low propensity voters, not,
so how do you reach the low propensity voter? Like, I mean, how do you do that if you're Kamala Harris with if that's the reason why she lost in those states? How do you reach that person in 100 days or whatever it was?
Well, I think most countries have elections that are a lot shorter than that. So the belly aching about it being short, I think was.
No, I'm just asking. I'm asking a straightforward question.
Yeah.
How do you reach those people who are not looking at the news? But maybe she goes on Rogan, I guess, or I don't know. Like, what is the solution for when you're running against this TV star, and to reach a low propensity, low news consuming the voter?
Well, I think the first thing is if we look at the campaign, she was most successful when people could delude themselves into believing she was going to be a break from Biden, which was very early on with the selection.
Yes, but she was most successful with people who were following. I mean, the people you're talking about are the ones who Googled on November 5th, did Biden drop out? That was the top trending search term on that day. I mean, so like what do you do?
Well, I mean, she lost the double haters. She lost the people that didn't like both parties, number one. And if you want to get me to answer the question, I will say this, like, it's a materialist answer, which is these people did not believe she was the change candidate. She told people she wasn't the change candidate. She told people she was the Biden second term. She campaigned with very unpopular, very right-wing Republicans like Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, who had no popular base. I think when she was popular, when her polls were the best, was early on when there was a switch out and young people of color, we were all progressives, were excited that she might be closer to, the Kamala Harris of 2020 than what ended up just being Joe Biden, but with a different presentation, a little bit younger. I don't think this was a messaging defeat. I think this was a material defeat. I think the Joe Biden presidency was very unsuccessful on the merits. For example, like the average age of a home buyer has reached an all-time high of 56 years old. The facts are that child poverty and poverty spiked in 2022 at the fastest rate it has ever done since the Great Depression.
Well, that was because we had cut it at the fastest rate in the
they ended the child tax credit ended. So plus you also had inflation that was extremely high, and it's probably it's underestimated because we changed the way we calculated inflation in the 80s to not include insurance costs and interest costs. And the reality is both of those are spiking extremely much faster than inflation, especially in places like Florida, where Kamala Harris did extremely poorly.
I think we can agree. I mean, my assessment of Biden's term is probably a little bit different from yours. When I look at unionization rates going up and
the unionization rate hit a record low in 2023.
Over the course of the Biden administration, there were more unions, unionization than we've seen in decades. But
there was more grassroots energy. But as far as like, if you look at the total, look at the employment, and I can pull up the report.
Oh no, I'm talking about new unions starting. Like new unions, new shops. The membership in unions may have
declined again.
Declined, but the number of new unions starting is exponentially larger, which is of course the first step when you're dealing with this. I mean, you're dealing with a 40-year decline or 50-year decline. But all right, well, Mike, this was fun. I got to jump.
Yeah, listen, Sam. I mean, I think all of us have a slightly different understanding of like where the country is, and where working people are. I think working people just see visible poverty. They see the fact that they can't afford to buy a home. They see the fact that unions are weaker than ever. They see a pugilistic foreign policy that was imperialist abroad, and and even the immigration issue was based on Joe Biden's extremely harsh punishments of Cuba and Venezuela, millions of refugees flowing because he sanctioned those countries and to try to destroy their economies and brought millions of people here. And then, he doubled down on supporting Donald Trump's immigration policy as a panic rather than to re-examine any of that. So I hope in the future we can have a Democratic Party that's a little bit more progressive than the one that was utterly defeated and crushed into a quadfecta. All right, everybody.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Mike, great to see you again.
Great to see you, bud.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. To hear, see where Mike was. A little symmetry 8 years later. Number 13, if the defeat was material, I'm still confused why Democrats didn't lose more broadly everywhere. The House majority will be slim and the blue wall Dem senators won.